What's crazy is 10 years ago, the players in today's video were starting their senior seasons of high school football. Scouts ended up coming up with their top 10 receiver recruits for the 2016 class, and in today's video we're going to examine it. I love to go back in time and talk about these players and where they are now, and I always like to answer the question if it was a good or a bad class. At first glance, you might think this class was pretty bad, but by the end of it, you might be surprised. A lot of these players did a lot better than expected, and in today's video, we're going to re-examine the 2016 top 10 receiver recruits, talk about how their college careers went, and where they ended up. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and examine the 2016 wide receiver class. So eventually I do want to do a part 2, as guys ranked 11 through 20 also have very interesting stories, but the top 10 was interesting, and the guy coming in at number 10 was Benjamin Victor. Ohio State has always been able to get blue chip wide receiver recruits, and Victor was just the next guy up. Obviously he was the number 10 receiver in his class, and was ranked number 80 in the nation, coming out of Coconut Creek High School, which was located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. At 6'4", Benjamin Victor had the perfect size for a high school receiver, and he had a great junior season in which he had 44 catches for 811 yards and 12 touchdowns. Combining all that, he decided to sign with Ohio State and had an interesting career with the Buckeyes. After catching 4 passes as a freshman, he became a decent third option on the team pretty much the next 3 years. In 2017, he caught 23 passes for 349 yards and 7 touchdowns, which was excellent, before then having 21 catches for 354 yards and 4 touchdowns. Victor was very efficient when he caught the ball, but he wasn't their true number 1 receiver. In 2019, he ended up catching 34 passes for 545 yards and 6 touchdowns, and in total in his career with Ohio State, he played in 47 games, had 83 catches for 1,300 yards and 18 touchdowns. He was actually tied with Michael Thomas with 18 touchdowns, and he was honestly pretty underrated. Victor was not good enough to get drafted though, as he would ultimately go undrafted in the 2020 NFL Draft, but then got a couple of chances. He signed with the New York Giants, before then getting a chance with the Baltimore Ravens. It was a very short stint, as in 2022, Victor played in 2 games and did not record a single catch. From there, he would bounce around before ultimately going to the spring leagues, and as of 2025, he was on the Edmonton Elks. While Victor was by no means a superstar, he was efficient over his 4 years at Ohio State, and it's hard to call him a bust. At number 9, we had the receiver out of Texas, and that was Devin Duvernay. He was ranked as the number 72 overall recruit in the nation, and that came after a terrific high school career. During 3 seasons, he had 170 catches for 2,900 yards and 36 touchdowns, and also ran over 100 times for 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns. Duvernay got a ridiculous amount of hype going into his Texas career, and he eventually became a stud. After having 20 catches and 3 touchdowns as a freshman, he would re-emerge in 2018, catching 41 passes for 546 yards and 4 touchdowns. With Sam Ehlinger as his quarterback, Duvernay would have one of the best seasons in the Big 12, finishing with 106 catches for 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns. This was enough to give Duvernay a ton of hype going into the NFL, and he was eventually taken with pick number 92 in the 3rd round by the Baltimore Ravens in 2020. Duvernay hasn't exactly been a superstar in the NFL, but he's been a solid role player. In 4 years with Baltimore, he combined for about 150 catches, just under 1,000 yards, and 5 touchdowns. In 2024, he was with the Jacksonville Jaguars, catching 11 passes, but failing to register a single touchdown. Going into the 2025 season, he signed a 1-year contract with the Chicago Bears, but it looks like he was cut and will try to bounce around on a practice squad to make it back into the league. Duvernay absolutely lived up to his high school hype and was by no means a bust. At number 8, we had wide receiver Fehoko, as he came out of Brighton High School in Salt Lake City, Utah. He was the number 61 ranked player in the entire nation, and scouts were confused. He was number 8 in terms of 24/7 Sports, but the composite had him at number 29. He was one of those prospects that seemed to be a little bit polarizing, and that came after having a state record 3,500 receiving yards and 41 touchdowns. After doing his 2-year mission, he would sign with Stanford, where in his 3 years with the Cardinal, he was solid. He ended up having 24 catches for 566 yards and 6 touchdowns in 2019, before having 37 catches for 574 yards and 3 touchdowns back in 2020. You have to remember it was a shortened season, so those numbers were actually really good. In 3 years with the Cardinal, he finished with 62 catches, just shy of 1,200 receiving yards, and 9 total touchdowns. Fehoko ended up becoming a 5th-round pick to the Dallas Cowboys, and his NFL career has been up and down, as he did end up having 3 catches with the Cowboys before then moving to the Chargers, and then this past season with the Chargers having a total of 6 catches for 100 yards. He would sign with the Arizona Cardinals, but was waived before the season started. Maybe he can bounce his way onto a practice squad, but I would say Fehoko was solid. He ended up becoming a 5th-round draft pick, which is hard to argue against, but at the same time, he might have been slightly underwhelming for being the best receiver in Utah high school football history. So far, our first 3 guys all either made it to the NFL or were really good for their college team, and Tyler Vaughns continues that trend. Coming out of the state of California, and as a senior, he had 84 catches for 1,300 yards and 13 total touchdowns. He arrived at USC with a ton of hype, and Vaughns would end up living up to it. He had 57 catches for 800 yards as a freshman, 58 catches for 674 yards as a sophomore, and then 74 catches for 912 yards as a junior. Vaughns' worst season came in 2020 when it was all shortened, but he still managed to finish with 33 catches. He ended up finishing his USC career with 222 catches for 2,800 yards and 20 total touchdowns. He actually was one of the best receivers in USC history, especially in recent memory, but this didn't translate to the NFL. Tyler Vaughns would end up going undrafted in 2021, which honestly was a bit shocking. From there, he made some attempts to make it into the NFL, as he'd go from the Colts practice squad to the Steelers practice squad. He was then drafted in the 10th round to the XFL draft, where he has been ever since. Tyler Vaughns was insane in college, and I'm not sure why he didn't end up making it in the NFL. That's something that I think USC fans should answer down in the comment section below. He was 100% not a bust either. At number 6, we finally have our first disappointment on the list, and that is wide receiver Kyle Davis. He ended up going to Archer High School from the state of Georgia, and he was ranked as the number 54 overall player in the nation. Kyle Davis ended up having 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns while he was in high school, and decided to commit to Auburn. He had a really good season, as he ended up starting 1 game for Auburn back in 2016, and in total he would catch 12 passes for 248 yards and 2 touchdowns. For Auburn standards, that was pretty solid, and going into 2017, it wouldn't change much. He ended up finishing with 7 catches for 210 yards, but unfortunately, in October, he was dismissed from the team. He ended up breaking team rules and would have to transfer to a new school. He would pick the Florida Atlantic Owls, but he never ended up suiting up for them. He then went to the CFL in 2019 to play for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and since then, I have absolutely no idea what he is up to. I don't believe he's playing football anymore, and unfortunately, he is the first bust on the list. At number 5, we might have the best player on the list, and that is A.J. Brown. He ended up going to Starkville High School, which is obviously located in Mississippi, and A.J. Brown was an insane player there. He became a phenom in both football and basketball, and he finished with 83 catches for 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns as a senior. He was also selected in the 19th round of the 2016 MLB draft, but he went all in on football. Brown was incredible during his time at Ole Miss, finishing with 189 catches for 2,984 yards and 19 total touchdowns. He had back-to-back seasons of over 1,200 yards in 2017 and 2018, and had a career-high 11 touchdowns in 2017. Brown would declare for the 2019 NFL Draft, where he was taken with the 51st overall pick in the 2nd round by the Tennessee Titans. Brown was really good in his first year, as he finished with 52 catches for 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. He's continued being an absolute beast since then, as he went for over 1,000 yards in 2020, was really good in 2021, and then ended up with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's had over 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns during his time as an Eagle, has won a Super Bowl, and has been an absolute star. In total in his NFL career, he has 446 catches for 7,000 yards and a grand total of 49 touchdowns. Brown is the best player on the list, and scouts got him right. At number 4, Tyrie Cleveland ended up becoming a big-time player out of Westfield High School in Houston, Texas, and was top 50 nationally. This came after a senior season in which he caught 46 passes for 982 yards and 14 touchdowns, and he would decide to commit to the Florida Gators. He's hoping to become the next big thing for them, and Cleveland was solid as a freshman, catching 14 passes for 298 yards and 2 touchdowns. His best moment of his college football career would come in 2017, as freshman quarterback Felipe Franks would find Tyrie Cleveland for a Hail Mary catch against Tennessee. This moment was electric and honestly one of my favorite plays of that era, and Cleveland finished with 22 catches for 400 yards. He never really took that next step, as he had 18 catches in 2018 and 25 in 2019. Cleveland had 79 receptions for 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns in his 4-year Florida career, and it was enough for him to be drafted. He was taken with the 252nd overall pick in the 7th round, and he would go over to the Denver Broncos. With the Broncos, he ended up playing 3 years and actually appeared in 23 games. Cleveland only ended up catching 8 passes in 3 years though, and failed to ever catch a touchdown pass. Despite him getting drafted, I honestly think Tyrie Cleveland was a bit of a bust for being the number 4 receiver in the country, but they're definitely much worse. At number 3, we had a receiver by the name of Austin Mack. I always get him confused with the Alabama quarterback Austin Mack, but going back in time, he ended up coming out of Bishop Luers High School, which is located in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Mack was nearly a 5-star recruit, after becoming the runner-up to Indiana's Mr. Football. He finished with 69 catches for 1,000 yards and 15 touchdowns that season, and eventually would arrive at Ohio State. Mack would end up having a decent 4-year career there, as he caught 24 passes in 2017, 26 in 2018, and 27 in 2019. He was always seemingly a good third option for the Buckeyes, and in total finished with 79 catches for 1,050 yards and 6 touchdowns. Mack wasn't a star, but he wasn't a bust either. I'd say he was somewhere in the middle. Ultimately, he'd end up going undrafted, but he would actually get an opportunity with the New York Giants in 2020. He found a way to make their roster, and actually caught 7 passes for 91 yards. Since then, Austin Mack was not able to stay in the NFL, as he bounced around from the Titans to the 49ers, and then eventually the Falcons. He ended up in the Canadian Football League, where I believe that's where he is now. Austin Mack is pretty similar to Tyrie Cleveland, as they were both good, but they were busts compared to where they were ranked and who was ranked right behind them. At number 2, we have our second USC receiver, and that was Michael Pittman Jr. from Oaks Christian School, located in the state of California. He was one of 2 5-star recruits in the class of 2016 at the receiver spot, and Pittman was pretty good just like Tyler Vaughns. Going back to his high school days, he would finish with 81 catches for 1,900 yards and 24 touchdowns as a senior. That is honestly pretty incredible. And he had the NFL in his blood, as his dad was a star running back at Fresno State, and then played with the Panthers, Buccaneers, and Broncos. Pittman would arrive at USC all the way back in 2016, and he was really good for them. He broke out in 2017 with 23 catches for 400 yards and 2 touchdowns, got a little bit better in 2018 with 41 catches for 758 yards and 6 touchdowns, and then had his true breakout season in 2019. He ended up finishing with over 100 catches for 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns. He became one of the best receivers in the Pac-12 and the go-to guy for Keaton Slovis. Pittman would enter the 2020 NFL Draft, where he was taken with the 34th overall pick by the Indianapolis Colts. Pittman has obviously been good for the Colts, but I don't think he's been able to take that next step. He's only had 2 1,000-plus yard seasons and has never had more than 6 touchdowns. It always feels like he's ready to break out and become a true star, but by no means has he been a slouch either. During his 5 seasons with the Colts, he's caught a grand total of 400 passes for nearly 5,000 yards and 18 touchdowns. Some of this can be blamed on terrible quarterback play, and Michael Pittman definitely lived up to the hype in both the NFL and his days back in college. And finally at number 1, we had Demetris Robertson. He was supposed to be the guy in this class, as he was a number 16 overall player and a 5-star coming out of Savannah Christian Prep. I've done a video on the channel on Demetris in the past, but man, he just wasn't really able to really put it all together. Despite rushing for over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns, as a senior, he had nearly 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns, and also rushed for over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns, and he made an interesting move as he chose to go to Cal. Of all places to be a receiver and to hopefully get developed, Cal is not exactly my first choice, but during his first 2 seasons there, he caught a grand total of about 57 passes for 800 yards and 7 touchdowns. He would end up having some legal issues, and after sitting out 2018, he would return home to play for Georgia. The Bulldogs were hoping to make him a true wide receiver 1, but he was underwhelming. He only had 30 catches in 2019, and then only had 12 in 2020. For his final season of college football, he'd end up at Auburn, finishing with 37 grabs for 489 yards and 4 touchdowns. Robertson had 136 total catches for about 1,800 yards and 14 touchdowns in his 6-year college career, and he was probably the biggest bust on the list. A lot of people always ask what went wrong for Demetris Robertson, and it's just a sad story. So taking a look back at this 2016 class, it's hard to call it bad. You ended up having 2 guys who are probably in the top 20 receivers in the NFL, and Michael Pittman Jr. and A.J. Brown. Tyrie Cleveland, Austin Mack, and Tyler Vaughns all got a couple of opportunities. Fehoko was drafted, Devin Duvernay was a star at Texas, and Benjamin Victor had a lot of touchdowns. Really only one guy on this list was awful in Kyle Davis, and then Cleveland, Mack, and Robertson were underwhelming. I have to say, for the most part, the scouts probably got this class right, and for once, they did a good job. To answer the question, just how bad was the 2016 receiver class, or was it? I don't think it was. It was pretty good, and what do you guys think? What do you think of these players? Which year or position group should I do next? And before you go, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.